Please welcome in now the CFL on TSN's Jim Barker, who looked like he was having a real fun time last night on the panel. It also looked like there was things you wanted to say, Jim, that ran out of time. So you can say whatever you want here, as you know. What was your take on the last-second loss for the Elks last night at BC?
You know, it was an interesting discussion that you were having earlier about how bad is the organization right now, because I've been involved in Calgary after Fred Fateri and Federic left. There was like less than 5,000 people going to the game, and it was in dire straits. Ferzani, Sapungis, Heller, those guys buy the team. It becomes part of Calgary again, and they readopted it. And that's what makes the CFL teams great. I feel the same kind of disconnect happening in Edmonton. It's always we talked about it live. We've talked about it every week. It's always a different reason why Edmonton loses. The teams they've lost to were 11-1. They've lost to the 4 best teams in the league. So you give them that, and they've been close in every game. From a player standpoint, they're right there. But from an organizational standpoint, I feel the disconnect. You feel it when you see a crowd there that's way down. There's a big disconnect. I mean, to get a delay a game in the last 3 minutes in the first half when you're driving to score is just it's non-tolerable. It just can't happen. You either have to call a time. Either the quarterback's got to. He's an experienced quarterback's got to see that, or the coach on the sidelines. But it was like, and Chris, it was like he didn't even realize he was losing the down, I think, because he thought it was going to be 2nd and 20, it looked like, and hustled the punt team out there because they lost the down. It's a bizarre situation. You know, of course, the last drive, they need to drive down and kick a field goal. And of course, what does Edmonton do? They give them a 15-yard free face mask penalty. It wasn't intentional. I mean, Nigel Morgan had played a good game. It's just different guys all the time. And, you know, you look at it, and I agree that the sidelines look a little discombobulated at this point. I just feel there's a major disconnect. With that being said, the person who said that if Chris Jones keeps the job, that they have a chance to really make some noise. And I think when the schedule eases up a bit for them, they do have a chance to get into the playoffs. And you know what that's like. You know, you get hot at the right time, and they have some dynamic players. The problem is, you know, they have a new owner coming in. If they would do that, then they might be able to move forward in doing something. If that's what, something's got to happen. Milton and I talked about it on the air last night, that something, you just can't keep going. This is a gate-driven league. And every week that goes by that nothing happens, you know, you don't know. Do you lose 2 fans? Do you lose 5 fans? Because I'm a believer in the CFL. We get fans one at a time. I mean, when I go in and if I'm in a restaurant and I can meet somebody and turn them into a CFL fan, that's the way the CFL is it's a fan at a time. And I think you lose them a fan at a time. And that's what I worry about with Edmonton.
It was built on that. It's what makes it great. It's one of the reasons we love it so much, you know? Yeah. But just for fun, historical sake, I said, the CFL sent me this. They sent me a bunch of stuff. I would put it on, but I look like a referee, and I don't want to look like a referee. Well, I'll put it on. Don't I look like a referee? I did not want to look like a referee. Who wants that? Early 90s Ottawa. Montreal folded in the 80s. Like, I don't want to kick on Edmonton because I love Edmonton. That was as bad as you've seen?
The Calgary was a bad team. I mean, it was as soon as they bought the team, we got Henry Burris, and that made it an okay team. And we made it to won a Grey Cup 3 years later. So in 2008. And then Toronto, that was probably the worst situation when I went back in 2010. They had won 5 games the previous 2 years. And the first thing I did when I got hired was fired every quarterback. And we had no quarterbacks in April going into my first year. And that's a risky thing to do. But that's an organization that is way behind personnel wise, I believe. And just from Toronto's always had problems at the box office and things like that. But then we go and get Ricky Ray, and 2 years later, and we win the Grey Cup. It can change in a hurry in the CFL. It's all about, if you have a quarterback, it gives you an opportunity to build something. If you don't have a quarterback, then and you don't know who's going to be that. Who would have known that Cameron Dukes would be Cameron Dukes? I mean, he stepped in here, and to me, he's the talk of the league. That's the story of the league. If he can win tonight against Montreal and put Toronto basically in first place, a kid who comes out of Lindsey Wilson. I mean, I was there when we were watching film on whether to take him, and it was arena football. And he had a little knack about him, a little bit of attitude, which you have to have, swagger. But to see what that guy's done, who can predict that? You can't. You can't predict that. And that, to me, is one of the great stories in the CFL.
One guy did, his arena coach, who watches this show every Friday.
Mike
and you know
Davis.
who that is. He's the one guy. Yes, exactly, Coach Davis. He said, Dukes has it. He can do it. And he coached him. Brian in Beausejour, Manitoba, as I was going to dive into the viewer comments. He says, good day, RP, crew, and squad. Brian here. I have a question for Coach Barker. After reading Dan Giancola's book, he speaks very highly of you. Eric Tillman in Pinball, who nicknamed him Clutch. What are your memories of Dan, and have you read his book? Thank you. For those, I would assume everybody knows, former CFL kicker had the Widowmaker heart attack and a stroke, and he's lived to tell the tale. It's a hell of a story. Your thoughts on Dan Giancola?
Again, he embodies what the CFL is all about. He came out and tried out, and we were looking for a Canadian kicker, and he was just the most accurate and got an opportunity. And it was just funny because Dan loved just, like, he would sit in the hot tub just to see who might come next. He was like a young fan who was on the team and living his dream. And, and he really did have a knack in pressure situations. He made kicks. And it was a great story. Just an unbelievable young man. I know he's gone through a lot since his since his days of playing football are done. Perry Lefko wrote the book with him, and Perry's a good friend, and they did a great job on the book. And like I say, Dan Giancola is a poster boy for what the CFL is all about. I really believe that. And we used to have tryouts for Canadian kickers and punters because, to use those spots on Americans is really costly. And if you can find, I remember going to in Calgary when in 2005, we went there and they had Americans and we had open tryouts. And Sandro DeAngelis and Burke Dales, who just passed away, unfortunately, this last year. Burke was our punter and Sandro was our place kicker, 2 Canadian guys. And that's what it's about. They go to tryouts, they end up making it, and then as I watch them through the years grow as football players, knowing where they were, that to me is one of the exciting things about the CFL.
No doubt. It doesn't get much more exciting than BMO Field tonight. 3-0 Montreal at 2-0 Argos. Clash of the unbeatens. What do you think about tonight's game?
Well, I am actually have a little cheering route tonight for the Argonauts. The Alouettes have a chance to break our record that when I was in Montreal in 2002, we had won 8 in a row and then went to BC and lost in the last seconds and took us. That was I'll never forget that game. And it was, we went in like 10-point favorites and got beat. And it's so tough to do what Montreal has done. So it's exciting to see that they'll do that. But I have a little personal thing in that, so I shouldn't have said that. But I'm going to be very unbiased. To watch Cody Fajardo, I'm so excited for Cody and watching how he's playing. But this game, they're honoring Ricky Ray, who again, I said last night on the air that through a very difficult time, people don't realize what from 2012 to 2016 when he won 16. He won 2 Grey Cups in that period of time. We had no facility. Our facility burned down. We were constant transition. We had, with locker rooms, and we would meet in a bar. The players would all meet in a bar, and we wouldn't know we were going to practice that day. And Ian Sanderson would go get us. But the one constant we had was Ricky Ray. And he was always there and always steady and did what he does, which is finds a way to win games. Nobody has more game-winning drives in their history than Ricky Ray. He's won 4 Grey Cups.
Oh.
I'm just, like I say, he is, to me, one of the, I had Flutie, and Flutie was a great player. I put Ricky Ray right with him. I feel like, and, I had Anthony Calvillo, who, was fantastic. So I've been able to be around, 3 of the great quarterbacks that this league has had, and Ricky is right there toward the top of the list.
See, this is what's about as good as the games is the talk around the games. Like, you guys were so great last night when Milt goes, if you don't have Ricky Ray in your top 5, or maybe it was top 3, you don't know what you're talking about. and he's right, and then yourself, wasn't it you that said Ricky never talks? And I'm like, oh, good. I thought it was just me, because when Ricky, when he was around me, he's just flat, no expression.
It's funny.
And that's just the way he is.
It's funny because Trevor Harris and Zach Caleros and those guys that played were his backups. They never will say it. But Ricky, it wasn't that he didn't want to help him. It's just he wasn't verbal. He would do his thing, and it was all happened in his head, and he wouldn't say 2 words with a mouthful. He was just that's just the way he's always been, and he played the same way. He could throw an interception, and he'll come back out the next series, and he's exactly the same as he was the series before he threw the interception. Nothing changes him, and that's a huge quality. I mean, I think we saw in last year's Eastern Final, Chad Kelly, he's taking the team down the field. They've won 16 games. The first drive, they're getting ready in against Montreal to score. He throws an interception, and the rest of the game, his game was changed. He was trying to do different. He just completely became a different player. So I appreciate what Ricky Ray had, which was that ability to tune it out. But he never said 2 words with a mouthful. He really didn't. I talked to him this morning and congratulated him on, because I can't be there tonight. And I remember the first call when I told him he was coming, and he was crushed because he loved Edmonton. He loved being there. And I told him, I said, nothing but good things are going to happen. It's going to be good for you. And sure enough, he came here and won 2 Grey Cups, and he left a mark here as one of the great quarterbacks to ever play in Toronto. And so that's an exciting thing happening tonight.
I'd like to see a football life documentary done on Ricky Ray, or at the very least, read a book. It could go on and on and on. You talk about the Argos side of acquiring Jim Barker. How about Edmonton? Dave Campbell, the should-be Hall of Fame PR guy, Eric Tillman stopped in his office and goes, I just traded Ricky Ray to Toronto. Dave was... You did what? You talk about changing the course of franchises. Okay, Jim, we got to run. We're out of time. Break a leg this weekend. Enjoy the football. Thanks for this.
Yeah, I will. Thanks, Rod. We'll see you next week.